All right, welcome to the Sullivan Street Podcast. Chris, glad to have you here. And
Glad to
I,
be
lo-
here.
I love interviewing people, and we have another great guest. What do we say, Chris? Crows adjacent or whatever. Um, but someone who with just decades of singing songwriting experience has toured with the Crows, has a project with one of the Crows members. Crows fans might know him as part of Jimmy and Immy, but you should know him as James Maddock. James, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It was so great. I got a chance. As Chris knows, obviously I've been fans with Crows for a while, but I almost saw them live just in a certain segments when I had free time. Like their fourth album, I got to see them like 6 times, and recently I've seen them like 5, 6 times. But sometimes I didn't know all the different live things they were doing, and I used to get confused hearing like, oh, what is the Shim Sham Show and Devil and the Bunny Show and all these things. And I've heard of Jimmy and Immy. And I knew something about it, but just never researched a lot. And as James
What?
knows, I got to see them in Spain, or went to Spain to see the Crows this year, and I got to see you perform twice. And I was like, okay, finally, I'm seeing Jimmy and Emmy, and it was great. And uh, yeah,
Thank you.
so James, let's before we get into Jimmy and Emmy, let's just talk a little bit about your career. Very, I guess prolific is the right word, career. You've been doing it a long time. You have something like 10 studio albums, plus albums with bands, I guess two or three, plus a bunch of live recordings. So maybe first talk about when you kind of knew or had you start to get into music, one of these, like you were 5 years old and knew you wanted to play with a band, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid, my grandfather was in the war. Where he was he was a George Formby impersonator. You won't know George Formby, I doubt, but he was a very famous English ukulele. George Harrison loved George Formby, and he played the ukulele, and he was like a huge star in England in the during the war, and kind of during that period and after that period, my grandfather kind of made somewhat of a living, being like a in what you might call one of the very early tribute bands. He was a George Formby he was a George Formby tribute artist, and he used to play the working men's clubs in the U in Leicester and everything. And he would do George Formby really, really well. So he was a great ukulele player, my granddad, and he taught me a few chords on the ukulele when I was about 5 or 6. So I started to play the ukulele, and then there was a guitar lying around the house, and if you can play the ukulele, you can kind of play the guitar, and I discovered that. That was a big discovery. I guess at the age of about 14, I started to play the guitar more seriously and became obsessed with the guitar and started to play music more and more. And then realized that I really didn't want to do anything else. So I somehow was able to somehow just kind of avoid proper work and just keep doing music in all kinds of different ways. And I've been able to make a living doing it since I was a kid, really. It's like 17, 18.
That's great. So I guess just doing different clubs and I guess it's almost like the comedy circuit, right? You do it and you meet people and you get connected and people
Oh
find you
yeah,
out.
I
Yeah,
did a lot. Obviously, in those days, I was playing in a lot of cover. It was cover band stuff, and it was.
right.
I played in Irish bands in Leicester. We toured all the Irish clubs around the Midlands, so I played all that kind of traditional music. And then before that, I was doing like we call it kind of ceilidh dancing, square dance
Okay.
kind of stuff, folk stuff. So I did all that, and then I did a cover band stuff. We were playing the top 20, and I had that band in Leicester. I moved to London. I got a bunch of record deals and publishing deals, and kept playing music, and just was able to just kind of keep going.
And I know this has
What
been, oh, sorry, please, Chris.
I was saying, what ended up bringing you to New York? Because you've been in the U.S. for about, I think, like 25 years, right? But
Yeah, well, it's. I was coming here more and more with the. I got a record deal on Columbia Records in the late '90s, and I was coming
Hmm.
more and more. And I was getting bored of London. I'd been in London for 20 years, and it just was not happening at all for me. And New York just seemed so much more exciting place to live. And then I was out one night, and then I met this girl, and
As happens.
one thing led to another. And she said, "Why don't you come and live with me in New York?" And so I said, "Yeah, that's a good idea." So I moved over. We were together, and we got married and everything. We were together for a number of years. that, you know, that ended and I stayed, and that I just kind of stuck it out.
Yeah, that your story, it happens, right? This is you're not the first person to have gone through that
It's
journey.
like Adam always says, there's always a girl.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. I was going to ask a similar thing, and I read in preparation for this show, I read a couple of your interviews, and I guess, yeah, not only do they ask you a similar question about moving to the U.S., but they also say, I guess, with some ironic or things you've heard before that I hate to pigeonhole people's music, but I guess some of your is described as Americana, right, or classic Americana, and with Bruce Springsteen influences, Neil Young, Eagles, etc. But you were from the UK, so that's obviously a bit of an interesting story too. I
Well,
certainly, yeah,
I was brought up on the Beatles and the Stones, and and those kind of English pop music as well. So I was
yeah,
very much influenced, and it's in my blood. You know, whether it's Slade, T-Rex,
Mhm.
the Beatles, all of those things were huge influences on me. And then when I started to play the guitar, I kind of found my way to the kind of West Coast singer-songwriter traditions, whether it's Neil, obviously Neil Young's from Canada, but that kind of Jackson Browne, Eagles acoustic, Neil Young, and the band, of course, the band's second album.
oh yeah,
Those kinds of acoustic-led singer-songwriter stuff was what I was into, but I was also hugely into early Tom Petty albums, and obviously the first couple of Bruce albums I loved, and I'm a huge Dylan fan. So, and then obviously I got into like John. I was a huge John Martin fan, and I loved all the Randy Newman records and Tom Waits and Kate and Anna McGarrigle, and so I'm all in there. I'm all in there with that kind of huge amalgam of English, Americana, Beatles, Bruce, Dylan, Neil Young. I love all that kind of vibe. I suppose that's where Delamitri. You remember that band from Scotland?
Mm-hmm.
Love
Yeah.
that band. Just try and write songs that just work on a guitar, and I can stand behind, and that's where I am. That's where I live.
yeah. And I even when I heard the songs in Spain, I couldn't find the set list. Like they had your set list of a lot of the shows in the last European tour. The Spain ones, because some of those shows you did six. I kind of think you might have done more in Spain, maybe 7 or 8. I could be wrong.
I don't
Maybe it
know.
was six. Yeah.
I had half an hour really, and
Okay.
and we kind of didn't know. There was a clock, and I did desperate. The first night, I went way over my time,
Okay.
and I completely didn't. But I blame Immy because he wasn't telling me to stop. And I got told off after that. So you went way out. I went like 6 minutes over, and I really did not want to do that. It was a huge mistake, and I felt really guilty about it. So we had a strict half an hour. Sometimes we would go on 5 minutes early to make sure we could get through the songs. But there's a number of songs that we definitely featured. Because I got Immy with me, and he's on the mandolin. It was presented a few problems because I had some of them were in Dadgad, and then there was an open G tuning. So there was like 3 different tunings throughout the set, and it's really a mind fuck to like tune on stage in front of 10,000 people. It's not something you want to do. But we had this set which suited the mandolin, suited the Jimmy and Immy vibe, and that was kind of the same 5 or 6 songs that we did every night. Mainly because it was a Jimmy and Immy half an hour,
Yes.
It was a slightly different thing. I was a bit not restricted, but those songs work the best.
Oh yeah, and some of those like you can get the crowd to sing along. I know you enjoyed that.
That was unbelievable. I mean, that was Willie Niles' idea. He was saying to me, "You've got to get the crowd singing along with When the Sun's Out," which goes, "Oh, oh, 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 oh." He loves it. And that's not really my style. I don't do that sing-along thing. But we did it the first night because I could hear Willie in my ear. And it worked. Everybody sang along. And then I thought, oh, fucking hell, okay, I've got to do it. So we did that. And then we've got that song, Keep Your Dream, which has got that. And everybody joined in. Like, I couldn't believe it. Every night it was really blew my mind that people were so supportive of what we were doing. And it just became part of the gig, part of the show. So it was amazing.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
two.
And for
So
those listening who may not know, Willie Nile, consummate songwriter. I've been seeing him around New York for, I don't know, 20 years at least on my end. I actually saw him open for the Crows in a rainstorm in Buffalo in like 2013. Good show. Um,
Yeah, yeah, he's unbelievable, Willie. You know, he's my hero. I love him so much, and he is so inspirational to me. Putting out great songs, great albums. His live gigs are unbelievably brilliant. I think some of the best gigs I've ever seen are Willie Nile gigs, and I'm a huge fan and supporter of the man. So, if you want to know any, if you get the chance, definitely, look into Willie Nile. He's a magic man.
yeah, so even though you'll and yeah, anyway, I was just gonna say it was fun to hear the Spanish crowd. I guess other crowds, probably in the UK, you got it a lot too. But Spanish crowd love singing along with they were so loud.
Oh my! Yeah,
Um,
in London, there was like 8 or 9,000, 10,000 people, and I couldn't really see them because it's like when you're on stage you can't see anything. And then when I hear them singing, I'm like, oh my God, there's a lot of people out there.
you know what? I'll link it to our podcast episode too. I do think the six that you played basically every night are a nice little, I don't know, buffet or appetizer
Sure.
style for people to get to know you. So, and
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong about this. So the first two, I think it's almost two from each album. So you had two from Green, which was Once There Was a Boy Part One and Ragdoll,
yeah,
and then two from Wake Up and Dream, which would be Keep Your Dream and Beautiful Now.
yeah.
And then two from Sunrise on Avenue C, When the Sun's Out, and Hollow Love, which I think is a great ender. Hollow Love, it's a great
Oh
song.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Okay, so that's right. And Hollow Love's in open G. So I had that second guitar with me. Thankfully, let me use that. And then the first two are in Dadgad, and which is for those people who don't know, it's a tuning on the guitar, which I had to get out of at the end of Ragdoll. I had to retune the guitar into concert, and that was just okay. It's not that difficult, but you can get lost, with the tunings. But somehow I managed to get through it. That was definitely the most stressful part of the night. Retuning the guitar is not. It can be a nightmare, but it was okay.
Chris, did you have a follow-up question before we get into the history of Jimmy and Immy?
well, no, it's interesting because we're talking about the tour. It's interesting how did so it sounds like the crowds were pretty good on the whole. Were there any sort of like standouts, or was it like on the whole like really good crowds in
I
terms of
mean,
being receptive?
Wembley was incredible because obviously I saw Springsteen there, I saw Raikuda there. It was the biggest gig of the tour. There was like 10,000 people, and it was my hometown kind of. So that was really incredible. But I couldn't really pull one out of the bag. They were all really. It was such an honor to be on the tour, and there were so many gigs, and they all were just beautiful gigs, and I was just loved every minute of it, and it was um, yeah, I can't really think of one particular one. They were all great. I really was such a thrill to be up there with those guys.
And
Yeah.
I know you've known them for a while, but am I correct that the only time you've quote unquote toured with them was that year and then also in 2024, or did you in other years
Yeah,
as well?
no,
Okay.
I never did, and I would always say to Dave, "Why can't I go out on tour with you guys?" Because I've known him a long while, but it just for one reason or another, it didn't happen. And then I did open for them in America on about I think like 7 or 8 gigs on the East Coast here in the summer, and they were that was wonderful to do that. And then I got a call, I don't know, sometime I guess it would have been like in July or something. Dave said, "Look, would you like to open for us in Europe?" And of course, I was like, oh my God, it'd be such an honor. And it was brilliant. And it was definitely the trip of a lifetime. I've never done anything like that in my life, in all the years of playing. I've played some fairly big gigs, but not consistently like that. And so to be on a tour with the Counting Crows throughout Europe and to play with Dave all the time it was just the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. I really did, really thrill. It was
Mm.
amazing.
So I guess that takes you where, and I read a little bit about this in one of your interviews recently, but for the listeners of our podcast, how did Jimmy and Immy start, and when did you meet them, etc.?
So I used to play Rockwood Music Hall in New York all the time, and Dave was playing with a few people that I kind of half knew, and he would come down and play at Rockwood, and I'd go and watch them play, and there's Dave Immerglot. I didn't know who he was, and he came to see me one night there, and I think he come up to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to play with you, and if you want, we can do some gigs." And I didn't really know much about him or I wasn't really paying attention at all to him at all. And I said, "Well, okay, man." Um, and then I can't remember what happened then. We obviously I did a gig and he sat in and then I didn't know he even played the mandolin. And then he started
Mm.
playing the mandolin with me. And then we played more and more. And I soon realised that he was a tremendous musician. And then so once that kind of was established, that okay, we got this little duo thing together, and it's more fun playing with somebody than on your own. And then we started to go to Italy a lot together. I have a
Mm.
connection in Italy, so he and I would go to Italy for 2 or 3 weeks and tour around Italy, and that consolidated our little duo. And we've just been friends and playing together. I mean, it might be like 15 years. It's quite a long time since this all happened. But
Yeah.
that's how
Where
it
in Italy would
began.
you play?
I'm sorry.
Where in Italy would you play? I'm Italian by background and spent a bunch of
You
time there,
know,
so I'm curious.
we would play mainly in the middle and the north,
Mhm.
but we would play. I mean, I've been to Italy so many times, but we play in these funny little towns that I can't even remember their names. They're
Mm.
not big places. Like we would rarely play the major. I don't think we ever played like maybe once we played in Rome, but we would never play the big cities. We were always in these smaller little towns,
Mhm.
and we got to see. And I go every year to Italy pretty much and play all around these little Italian towns mainly in the north and in the middle.
Mm.
We did go to the south last time. And we go there too, but they're no places that you would ever know. You wouldn't know the names of them. You might do, but they're
You might.
small little towns, and you
Yeah.
get to see the real Italy. You really get to see the real Italy, and I really consider it one of the great privileges of my life to be able to have played all around Italy, and I've got lots of Italian friends and fans, and it's a massive. I love Italy so much, and I love the people there, and they've been so good to me over the years, and we play all over. It's really a dream come true. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
do it.
Small Italian
Please.
towns are amazing. So I'll
Oh,
just say
Yeah,
that
please.
they're just all they're fantastic, and that's I think by nature as an American, as an Italian American, but an American, the first couple times you go there, you go, okay, well, I guess I got to go to Rome and I got to see the Colosseum and whatever, and that's super cool and that's great, and everyone should do that. But yeah, you get to like a smaller Italian town. And you really kind of get the vibe of it, and it's such a beautiful and wonderful place, and
oh,
I miss it all the time.
it's unbelievable. There's nowhere like it on the planet. It's really a special country. If anybody gets the chance to go, just go. You go to Orietta, I think was the name of a little town I went to, and it was as you're driving through the motorway, there it is on the hill. It's this kind of an ancient medieval walled city, and then when you go up there and the roads are real tiny, like a Fiat advert on the television. And then there's a central square, a piazza, and there would be a stage and there would be seats, and we would play, and there'd be a PA, and it would be like it's like Cinema Paradiso. I don't know if you're hip to the movie Cinema
Mm.
Paradiso. Every day was like a scene from Cinema Paradiso.
Mm.
So it's mind blowing. And then obviously there's the food, and there's the ice cream, and the weather, and there's the ancient history of Rome and Italy.
And maybe if you're young, you'll have the girl that makes you want to move from the US to Italy, right? Instead of vice versa. So,
But I will also say that super appreciate like a couple of times I was there. One time I was in Milan and I realized that Hollis Brown, New York band, was playing, and we're like, oh, I guess we should go see a band tonight. And I have never seen a line for merch that long at the end of the show, and like just people just coming out and they're like, oh, of course I'll buy your records. I don't know.
Oh,
Anyway,
wonderful, wonderful.
yeah.
so I'll do a quick plug now for James. We'll do it at the end too, but his website, James Maddock, one word, Maddock. So jamesmaddock.net. And when you're talking about Jimmy and Immy, correct me if I'm wrong, you
Mm.
released two live albums with as Jimmy and Immy. One of them is still you can buy or you can listen, you can stream on the website, but also buy on Amazon and Apple if you would like to support
And at my
James.
and at my store, which is jamesmaddock.net, there's a
Okay.
store. There's a store there. We have all
Oh
the
yeah.
CDs there.
Yeah, I see that. It looks like the other one is currently out of print, the Live
No,
in Italia.
I actually have we've reissued that, so
Okay.
that is in
Oh.
print now. So they're both in print, I think.
Oh, great. So yeah, for those that want to actually listen to it, there is a Jimmy and Emmy CD, two of them.
Right.
It's not just you have to be in Spain and see them randomly.
There's one.
Um,
There's one live in Italy, I believe, as well.
yeah, that second one. And also the one, yeah, I think you promote this on the website too, but the one really nice, because I think it was about 35, 40 minutes. I don't know how many songs, maybe six or so or seven, but it's called, we'll link it to the, on the bottom here, One on One, Jimmy and Emmy, from January 2014, New York City. I don't know where that was, if that was at
That
Rockford or
will be
not.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where was that filmed? Was that?
Do you know Erhood? Erhood,
Oh
Leslie.
yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
So Erhood obviously is like the official photographer for the Crows, and he videographer. He does so much for those guys, and he ran a series underneath the City Winery
Wow.
in New York, and God, he filmed so many people. So there's so many of those one-on-one. I mean, anybody who played the City Winery, he would get them and do a little video downstairs. So, I think it was just part of that series. So, yeah, that's from the downstairs at the old City Winery.
I miss the old City Winery. That was a beautiful
Yeah,
venue.
it was. And it's so much easier to park. When it's the worst getting of all time, that gig, you can't park anywhere near it. A pain in the ass, but
Yeah,
yeah.
we've indirectly talked about him before as the official videographer, photographer, etc. And then
Yeah.
we're gonna try to get him on the podcast
Oh,
because of this.
he's really something. He's wonderful. He does so much. He's a machine. So yeah, he's definitely, and he's a great guy. So I'm sure he'd be happy to be on.
So when you play as Jimmy and Emmy, does Emmy play mandolin 100% of the time,
No,
basically? Okay.
I wouldn't never allow that.
Okay. So what else does he play and
He plays
do?
acoustic guitar.
Okay. Okay.
And is
Well,
that primarily what he's done on? Sorry.
we played the other night at the we do an 11th Street Bar gig every so often, every month at the 11th Street Bar with Sean Pelton, the famous drummer from New York, from Saturday Night Live and a million other bands. And he and I do a little duo. And if Immy's in town, he will obviously play with us. So we do a Jimmy, Immy, and Sean thing at the 11th Street Bar. And Dave plays mandolin and acoustic guitar.
Okay. Yeah, and you know this already, but we have a couple of long-running jokes on the podcast, but one of them is that when we've had other musicians on, the that are related to the Crows in quotes, it's always, oh, who do you know the most, or who do you play with the most, or who? It's always Immy. So how can Immy be connected to the? It's like it's so funny how even your story that he still found time, obviously his passion, he just loves doing it. We interviewed Kobe Brown on the podcast, which he plays with when he's in LA, just like he plays with you when he's in New
Yeah.
York. So,
He's in so many little bands, isn't he? He like plays with a uh, Cracker,
yeah.
and he's got that Third Eye thing, and then he's got the Crows, he's got the Monks of Doom, and then there's a Camper Van Beethoven. He
Yeah.
plays with. I mean, he's the thing about Dave is he's good at a lot of things. He's great in the studio with a guitar, electric guitar, slide guitar, the lap steel, the
Yep.
mandolin, the pedal steel. He brings a lot. He's very, very good. So people, and obviously he's a great dude. So people just want him around. Why
Yeah.
not? He's fantastic. Well,
He gets invited to every party. He's that
yeah,
guy. He is
yeah,
the personality. Chris,
yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but it's funny because what I was thinking, and maybe I have a different perspective, but when from Emmy not being in the band officially in the beginning, maybe the first time I think of Emmy is him playing mandolin in Omaha, right?
Hmm.
In the studio.
Yeah.
And then and he does play mandolin in a couple of Crow songs, but then to see him with James Maddock as Jimmy and Emmy playing mandolin throughout a number of songs, I really liked it. It kind of brought me
Yeah.
back to, yeah, So that
Well,
was
he
neat.
played with John Hyatt a lot, and I think he played with quite a lot of mandolin with John.
Okay.
So he's very good at that mandolin pop rock thing. So it's a beautiful color, and you know, it's
Yeah.
just another thing he's really, really good at. The bastard.
Well, what also interesting, I take back because again, I would never say that mandolin and ukulele are the same, right? But they are similar-ish instruments, and going all the way back kind of to the beginning of your story there, it brings that color that,
Yeah, right.
sort of
That's right.
informed it. Yeah. Yeah.
The yeah, I always liked the mandolin since the I mean, I'm a child, I grew up in the 70s. I'm a child of when Bruce Hornsby had the Mandolin Rain song.
Oh
Remember
yeah.
that song?
Mm.
I thought that was so cool in a pop song, and I was only like, 9 years old or something when it came out. I'm like, this is amazing.
Well, don't forget. Actually, don't forget you've got you've got the in pop music you've got you've got
Oh, did we lose you there?
Maggie May.
Oh,
Rod used the mandolin to great effect
yep.
in pop
Mm.
music, and I'm sure there's other instances of it as well. So that's when I first thought about the mandolin. But it's such a great instrument because it brings that lovely high end. John Richard Thompson used it on that that song. Well, I'm going away to leave you. I'm going to leave you in disgrace. Over the hill, you know that song off.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just a great compliment to the acoustic guitar, whether it's Irish music or
Mm.
Celtic music or something. It's a natural companion to the guitar.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Maggie May because actually we were talking about a Crows album on our last episodes, and we were listening. There's like a mandolin intro to come around, and I was like, I kind of think it's pretty similar to Maggie May a little bit. It's got certainly you can hear the sort of the influence of it, which is probably maybe the
Sure.
most famous mandolin intro of anything in any song.
Oh, right. You're saying this Crow song Come Around has that mandolin. Right, right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it goes towards that, which is a beautiful. I mean, yeah, Maggie May is an incredible song. Um, yeah. Uh, Can I
Did
ask? I'm curious. I went to a lot of shows at Rockwood Music Hall in my life, and it's gone now. Any sort of like a big memory other than just playing there a lot, but just sort of memories of that place, which was
Yeah.
such an important venue in New York that
Oh
unfortunately
yeah.
we've lost to the last sort of to COVID, but really just I think to the change in the industry over the last
Yeah.
5 years. So
Well, yeah, that's right. It was very pivotal to certainly to my New York existence and to my New York career musically. And there was a great community of people that allowed to happen. And Ken Rockwood deserves all the credit in the world for putting that together. And it really became a home for so many of us New York musicians. But stand out a lot of it. Some of the great nights I had in there. I particularly remember Teddy Kumpel, who was a New York guitar player, absolute genius guitarist, and he used to do a Monday midnight, and he would have every night, every week it would be a different rhythm section, different bass and drums, and the best players in New York would play with Teddy, and he still is a genius on the guitar, and I'm such a fan. He's my favorite guitar player in New York City. Teddy Kumpel, his name is, and he's brilliant. So I really, really had great memories of watching him and the band play. And it might be Aaron Comas, it might be Teddy, it might be what's his name, Tony Mason, or it might be Sean on the
mm,
drums, Sean Pelton, or any number of super heavyweights would come in and play bass and play drums with Teddy, and they do these long kind of jams and they had these great songs, and Teddy would do incredible guitar playing with effects and everything, and it was mind blowing. That's when that's that kind of education of New York
Mm.
musicians was really big for me. And I would go to the 55 bar, just a slightly
mm,
detour, and go and see Brian Mitchell and Clark Gayton and those guys play down at the 55 bar. And
mm.
that place has gone as well. And that was another absolute, you just couldn't beat that place. Those guys playing in that room was some of the greatest music I've ever heard in my life. So those two places have kind of gone now. And New York being what it is, you can't afford to live there anymore.
Yeah.
It's just not possible to be a musician there. It's very difficult to be a musician. I mean, if you're
Yeah.
if you're rich, it's easy, obviously. But if you're like a regular guy like me, you can't afford it unless you want to live in a room about half the size of my kitchen for $4 grand a month.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought about that even when Immy and Adam are sometimes interviewed about when they first lived together and they were struggling musicians. Like, I want to know what neighborhood that is now in the Bay Area and how much that would cost them if they did not have a quote unquote real job at the time. So.
Yeah, it's very difficult, man. Very difficult.
I guess
Yeah.
as being a Crows podcast, I have to ask you because if doing the math that if you met Immy, let's just say around 2010 or so, how much did you know about the Counting Crows at all before meeting him? And did you listen to them more after meeting him? Because maybe he would talk about his music or something like that, or
No, not really. I knew them because I knew their hits. You know, they were massive on MTV and all that, right? So all of those songs that everybody else knew, I knew, and I thought they were great. You know, I really thought they were a great band, and I loved those songs. So got some fantastic songs. So I only knew them like that. And then when I go and see them, if David would sometimes put me on the guest list, if they played New York, I'd go and see them. And
yeah.
you know, I soon realised what a terrific band they are. They really are a great band. You know, they sound fantastic. You know, they all know that they all got their lane. They all
Yeah.
play together beautifully. They've obviously been playing together for a long time, and they make a fantastic sound. Adam's an incredible singer, front man, and you know, I thought, you know, I didn't really know a lot about them, but I grew up listening to them. I think like they were just part of the furniture, really, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And of
Like
course,
they were just on the radio, and you know, they had these great songs, and they were the Counting Crows, massive.
and then obviously when you
In
tour with them, you get to hear like they were playing basically all their five new songs or four, right, five new songs. So you got
yeah.
to hear all those most nights. Yeah.
Anything in touring with them that you know, in terms of like the songs, you're like, oh man, I'm really excited they're playing this tonight. Like, I'm just kind of curious because you
I
got to
mean,
see them
you know,
obviously a whole bunch, you know.
I love the Omaha song. I thought that was
Mm,
beautiful. I thought I love that. Is it called Holiday in Spain?
Yeah.
mm, yeah.
And those kinds of things. And then there was um, the kind of ones I recognised, I loved. So yeah, I thought they were beautiful, beautiful songs. That Holiday in Spain would get me every time. I'd tear up when I'd hear that.
I
It's
I
beautiful.
I
Yeah.
read also in the in an interview you did last year, and it was something I was going to ask you about anyway. But it said, "Hey, did you ever go on stage with them once?" And you kind of laughed and said, "Oh, Immy asked me a couple times, but I said no, thank you," or something. I think it would be
Yeah.
fun to go out with them one time or at a in the encore or something.
I guess. I mean, there was a moment when it was kind of suggested that I could join them on the last song a little bit, but that's not really. It wasn't that I was. I just felt that was like a bit intrusive. You know,
Okay.
It's not my style to push myself forward. Had they asked, you know, a bit more vociferously and said, "Oh, come on, man," I would have done it. But that wasn't forthcoming, and I was not the kind of person to say, "Hey, get me on at the
Yeah.
end, or I'll
You need
snap my feet."
you need a fourth guitar for that. I know you do. I know
Right,
you do.
exactly. Yeah, you know, it was mentioned, but I just didn't really push the. I didn't push the. I didn't push it, so it didn't happen.
I had two things I just wanted to cover at some point. I don't have a lot of other set questions. I just thought it was kind of interesting when I was reading about your career, and I really didn't know that your first, I guess, quote unquote, hit in the US was as that band Wood and a song, what was it, on Dawson's Creek or something? Or was on, but and then I listened to that, I go, I do kind of recognize this song. I forget where, if I heard this, back then I used to listen to so much music and maybe even college radio or something. But how was that being on? I'm sure I know people recognize it to this day, and those are especially because that TV show, that was a little maybe the generation behind me, but I know that was a big coming. That might be your generation,
It's my generation, Eric. It's how I talk to
Yeah,
girls. You watch some
yeah.
Dawson's Creek, you learn about what they're interested in and try to engage in some conversation.
Did you want to
Yeah,
talk about that a bit? And for those who don't
yeah.
know, what's the name of the song again?
Yeah, it's called Stay You.
Say You, yeah.
So I wrote this. I had this band. You know, it was kind of a regret of mine that I called the band Wood. I should have really called it my name because it was all me. you know, it was my songs, it was all me, and the amount of name recognition I would have got from calling the band, you know, my name as opposed to the band name I think would have really helped me in later life. But that was a bit of a mistake. But I had a band called Wood, and we put out an album called Songs from Stamford Hill, which came out on Columbia Records. It's a really, very, very proud of the record. It's a really fantastic album. It's by you won't find it on my Spotify page, but if you look for Wood, WOOD, the songs from Stamford Hill, it will come up, and I'm really, 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 really proud of that record. That, you know, that's what got me the record deal, the song "Stay You," and then it did appear on the Dawson's Creek soundtrack album, which sold a lot of copies, and it was also a kind of almost a hit. I think it got it on the AAA stations. It got to like number 6 or something like that in the chart. I think so. So it got quite high, but it didn't translate. It didn't. We didn't have a hit with it. And so, if you're on Columbia Records, all they're really interested in is having a hit,
Right.
and you don't really get much of a shot. If you don't have a hit, you're kind of gone. And I didn't have a hit, and subsequently, I didn't really last very long there. But that kind of precipitated my journey to America. And yeah, the song's called "Stay You," and it's a pop song, and it's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. As I said, it definitely, there's something in my subconscious. I was like, I definitely know this song. It's been, you know, a couple decades or whatever, but I've heard this before. That's great. Hey, by the way, and this wouldn't have been on there, the Wood song, but I like to sometimes ask our guests, do you know what your 2 most popular YouTube videos are? Any idea?
I mean, I'm wondering, probably "My Old Neighborhood,"
Yep, that's one. Yep.
"Another Life."
Yep, that's it. So I definitely, good job. I definitely advise our listeners to check out both on James Maddox's YouTube channel.
Right.
So, Chris, did you have
And
any
also,
more?
if anyone wants to watch Dawson's Creek, and let me know if that holds up, because I have not watched it in 25 years.
That,
I don't.
I couldn't get with that show because it just felt like the way the kids talk to each other. You know, they were like supposed to be like 18 and 19, but they talked to each other like they were like 45, 48-year-old people in that had gone through like 30 years of mental therapy. I just
Yeah, I
couldn't
think it
get
was
with
like
the
an
dialogue.
I feel like it was an aspirational show for like people who were 2 years, like, because I was probably like a year or two younger than whatever they were supposed to be. So I was like, yeah, that can be me. I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know as a 40-something-year-old how much I would enjoy rewatching that show. I feel like
I know, I couldn't, I
I would
just
just
couldn't.
cringe at like the image of myself at the time, you know.
And the one thing that was really annoying about that show, from my perspective, I had 3 songs in that show.
Oh,
In the actual song, you know, it was a big show, and if you had a song in the episodes, I had 3 songs in one episode. Um, at the end, the credits would roll, but they never mentioned the bands in the credits, which was a huge missed opportunity, you know, because people would have recognized if they liked the songs, they could have saw who was, you know, recording the
yeah.
songs, and you know, hopefully maybe buy your record. But they never credited the art. This any not just me, but nobody got a credit on the outros, and that was a bit of a. I wish they'd done that. Would have been great. But
Yeah, you're right. That's one advantage newer or nowadays they have right on the smart TV. Sometimes you can press the button and it tells you, or you just put Google out and say, what song is this? And it'll tell you and you look it up.
exactly, that
Yeah.
wasn't the thing back then. You know, you would never know who the songs were in the show. There's no way to know.
Hmm.
Yeah, because that was a little before, because there was that not that many years later, right? Things like Grey's Anatomy like made kind of a bigger deal of the songs they placed, and it's just right before I think that sort of all took off and became part of the industry. I guess it was just, oh well, the songs on the show.
Yeah,
But
it
yeah,
was.
it's
It was. I thought it was just a real missed opportunity for everybody. You know, I don't know why they didn't. They just couldn't be bothered to do it. It was. I mean, I do have one little story about Dawson's Creek, which is
Please, yeah.
quite funny. I was there. I was asked to do. They had this big event where they invited. They did a competition for I think like 1,000 people to come to a gig in North Carolina, wherever the show was filmed. And if you wrote in and you won a prize, that would be the flight and the hotel to come to a gig in North Carolina. And on the bill was a bunch of people, including me and my friend Bill, who played mandolin with me. And so we get to the gig, and there's a theatre, and the stars of the show are there. I actually went out with the main lead dude for a drinking spree after the gig. We had a really amazing night. And anyway, so we're about to go on stage, me and Bill, and I said to the agent, the Columbia guy, I said, how much are we getting for the gig? You know, because this is a big event. Everybody's here. And he said, oh, I don't know, I'll make a phone call. And he makes a phone call, and he says, you're getting $25,000. Wow. I mean, that's like a massive amount of money for me and Bill. I said to Bill, we'll split it, dude. We'll split the money. 12 grand each. So I walk on stage, and all I can think of is $12,500. It's a life-changing amount of money for me. And I play like 3 or 4 songs, and I can't believe I'm so happy. Come off the stage, and we're like, fuck yeah, fucking, we're going to be rich. And then the guy says, oh, listen, I've got some bad news. You're not getting any of that money. It's all going to Columbia Records.
Oh, no.
So we had it was like, oh, boy, we nearly made some money.
Because that would have been double the amount now, right? 25,000 back then is like 50,000 now. So
fortune. It's a fortune for us. We were broke. Even though we were on Columbia, we had no money. So yeah, but we never got the money.
Does that, when you said, just to go back to one thing that you reminded me of, when you said that you sometimes play still with Immy, what is it called? The 11th Street Bar?
11th Street Bar.
So yeah, keep on a lookout for, I was just going to say, keep a lookout for that. And,
or just go to 11th Street Bar. It's a pretty cool bar to hang out at.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great New York bar. It depends on the days in town. I've got a feeling the next time we play, which is the 28th, he is going to, I think they're flying to Brazil that day or something like that. Or Australia, or wherever
they're going to Australia, yeah.
So I don't know whether he'll be there that day, but I'll definitely be there with Sean.
Okay, yeah. So keep a lookout for that. So you can see Jimmy and Immy at the 11th Street Bar, or if just Jimmy and did you say Sean? Jimmy and Sean,
yeah.
And sometimes
Yeah.
There's 2 live albums you can buy. You can see them, on other tours. You can watch their YouTube videos, and all sorts of for Crows fans. And then that's how you can sneak into, right? So you get the Crows fans into the Jimmy and Immy, and then hopefully they move over to the James Maddock solo work. That's the idea here.
Come on.
So, well, thank you. Chris, do you have any? I kind of got all the questions I wanted to ask.
I think we kind of covered it. The history and also the sad laments of New York City venues that are gone. Unless we want to also lament Bowery Electric, which is apparently also closing.
Is it?
They're turning it into a theater, apparently.
Oh, yeah, because Jesse's doing his thing there. Is that right? He's doing the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do after that run is over. I don't know how long that's going to be, but yeah, I feel like we're losing all of our good small venues, the Old City Winery and Rockwood.
Nothing lasts forever, and New York is no exception. The places come and go. It's at least the bitter end's still there. Where I play there with my band every few months, so that's still there.
Well, thank you. It's so fun hearing about your journey. I don't know. I think it's interesting hearing about from of course, if you interviewed somebody who's just starting their career, you get this kind of optimism and goals, and that's kind of interesting. But I also like hearing people that have been doing it for a bit and how the music industry has changed and their stories and experiences. I think it's also a lot of fun, especially since you're still doing it. Oh, and check out your tour, right? James is still on tour. I know you're in some of the cases. You're playing with, are you playing with always the same, in this particular tour with the same person, or it changes up?
Well, I am, I'm always changing it up. Sometimes it's the band, sometimes it's me on solo. Sometimes it's a duo, whether it's a duo with Brian Mitchell on the piano, or Immy, or Sean, or it depends on the gig. Obviously, I've got to try and make a living, and if I use the band, that's a big expense.
Right.
But so it kind of depends on the gig. But I'm always working around in the New York area. So just my website, jamesmaddock.net, as my gigs. Facebook, James Maddock Music, I think it is / James Maddock music / Facebook is my main Facebook page, Instagram as well. So I'm easy to find. So, just check in with me there.
All right, thank you. And I'm so glad I got a chance to finally see Jimmy and Immy live and talk to you at the merch booth. So I
Thanks,
appreciate
man.
it.
Thank you.
So thanks everyone for listening to us on Sullivan Street, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much.